Fan fiction is definitely a thing. And actually, it's a thing that I kind of like. I write fan fiction along with my regular writing. And then Grumio gave Petruchio the gentle kiss he had waited for so long. Heh, it's gonna be awesome. Sometimes I read fan fiction, although a lot of times it is kind of terrible. I mean, I've seen good fan fiction, I've seen bad fan fiction, I've seen published fan fiction, and the book we're going to talk about today is some of that. It is called Enter Three Witches, and it is by Caroline B. Cooney. Let's read the back, shall we? Mary, daughter of the Thane of Cawdor, is a 14-year-old ward to the Lord and Lady Macbeth, a typical young maiden of the court. She longs for her true love Aslave to marry her and sweep her away. All of her hopes and dreams are dashed, however, when her father is hanged as a traitor to King Duncan, thus leaving Mary unsure of her future. While lost on the moors, she has a chance encounter with the Weird Ones, just as they are offering a dark and ominous prophecy to Macbeth and Banquo. And as Lord and Lady Macbeth descend into madness, Mary must rely on her wits and cunning to survive the overwhelming torrent of destruction these power-hungry demagogues unleash upon the land. Yeah. So clearly, it is a fanfiction of the Shakespeare play Macbeth, which is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. Now, let's get out our handy-dandy notebook and see what our thoughts are on this. The author of this book, Caroline Cooney, focuses her story on like 5 main characters, some of which she makes up and some of which are characters from the play. There's Mary, who is the sort of main character, who is the one that was described on the back. There is Seaton, or Satan, that is how you pronounce his name. He is a servant to Macbeth in the play, and he's sort of Macbeth's squire in the book, and he's also a bad guy. Fleance, who you probably remember as the son of Banquo, he gets to be much more of a main character in this. And there's 2 other female characters whose names I can't remember and can't be bothered to find out because they made that little impression on me. And that's kind of the problem. None of these characters, she has so many to work with, none of them really make a good impression on you at all. They're all really boring. The characters are all flat and none of them have very many character traits. I mean, the character of Mary is very much a Mary Sue. That typical author insert character. Mary has like 1 personality trait, and that is that she's kind of a girly girl, which is fine. I think it fell down. Stay. So yeah, it's fine that she's feminine, but that's like, if that's your only personality trait, you are a very boring character, and sadly, she is a very boring character. The other 2 females are very boring characters, and Fleance and Satan are somewhat interesting because they were actually from the play. She takes a lot of liberties with both of their characters. Satan becomes sort of a bad guy, and I actually liked him more than I liked most of the good guys because he actually seemed to like have wants and interesting thought processes and stuff, so yeah. I feel personally that this should be called Crazy Random Happenstance, the book, because the main character of Mary, she's shoehorned into all of these situations that happen in the play, and you've got like 5 characters that you're using here, author, Caroline. You've got like 5 characters that you're using, and it still feels really awkward that any of them are in any of these situations, especially Mary in her interaction with the witches. She always just happens to be wandering about in a dangerous moor at the time that the witches are doing something and saying prophecies to Macbeth, and the witches are just like, yeah, it's cool if you watch our prophecy, whatever, it's fine, and it just, I'm sitting here going, what? That makes no sense. Crazy random happenstance, and that keeps happening. She just happens to be the one who's like in all of these situations when shit's going down, and it's highly unbelievable for her to be there. I don't think it would have been impossible for the author to come up with something, but it would have been difficult. Like, if I was ever going to do it, you never know, I might. Where Macbeth and Banquo come to see the witches, I would literally do it from the point of view of Banquo. Yeah, it's really random. All the places she ends up. She ends up at Macduff's castle when his family's gonna get killed. She's just everywhere for no reason. There are reasons, but they're highly tenuous. The witches matter very little in the book. They feel awkwardly put in. Like, the characters are like, oh yeah, there are witches, like that's kind of a normal thing. But when magical stuff happens, the characters don't seem like at all concerned about the magical stuff that's happening. Like, the Mary is there to see all the prophecies. The witches give the prophecies to Macbeth, and then Macbeth becomes king. And shouldn't she be a little bit more like, well, shit, maybe I should go find these witches because now Macbeth has gone a bit crazy and wants us all dead. And these witches clearly at least knew something was going to happen, if not made it happen, so I should go talk to them and see if they can help. Nope, she never thinks of... It's so frustrating. The witches are just sort of there. They're just a plot point. They're not... The book is called Enter Three Witches. You'd think it would be a little bit more to do with the witches. Maybe that's just me, but they are some of the most interesting characters in the play. Sadly, along with the author's characters being flat, the characters from the play are flat as well. It was almost like Caroline was afraid to give any of them personality traits that maybe not necessarily different from the play, but like give them more to them to make them good book characters, because they're fine stage play characters because there's an actor to go in there and give them life. But if you're going to put a character like Macbeth or Lady Macbeth into a book, you have to inject them with a little bit more life yourself, and the author does not do that well at all. She kind of tries, and it really fails. Like, you don't know who to care about or why. There's nobody with anything really serious going on except for Fleance and Banquo, who have a decently intriguing relationship. I will say that I like their father-son dynamic. It's one of the only dynamics in the book, but so maybe that's why I like it so much. But it's definitely there, and I definitely can appreciate that. But otherwise, nobody has any extra development. They're all just characters brought straight from the page of a play. Not even from the stage of a play, but from the page, and as a result, they're flat. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the themes, or the themes that sort of try to happen, because there is a lot to explore in the play of Macbeth. And I almost think that this book would be a good introduction to, like, the basic story of Macbeth without any exploration of any of the themes that are in it. Like, I mean, I know this is a young adult book, but I have come to expect more from young adult books because there are some that have very excellent writing and themes. So I am not going to say that because this book is for teenagers that it shouldn't have any of the themes that are involved in the Macbeth play, because teenagers can definitely understand and handle it. Some of the themes that they try to explore a little bit, the strongest one that they try to explore is the old versus the new religion, but it's not really very well explored at all. They just sort of both exist in the same world and nobody seems to mind. It's like, oh, you believe the old way and you're a Christian and everyone's fine with that. And maybe that's kind of the way it was back then. Maybe it could be sort of pagan and Christian both, and that was kind of accepted. I don't know. Maybe this author's more correct with that, but everybody's like, yeah, okay, you go to church and you pray to the saints, but you also go visit witches on the moors, so what are we trying to say? But that is the most explored theme in this. Some others might be arranged marriage, because Mary sort of has an arranged marriage, and she's okay with it, which is always refreshing to see. She's looking forward to it, so that's good. That her boyfriend gets killed, but oh well. Evil, what makes someone evil, but that, while being a great theme from the play, is very tentatively explored in this book, not really explored much at all. Sort of like at the end, they're kind of like, oh yeah, we kind of maybe feel bad for Lord and Lady Macbeth, because maybe they weren't completely all evil and that's all they had. It's just, no. Score of 0. And there's also a very slight theme of names having some power. This author seems to like the characters' names and does a little bit of exploration with like the name in the old tongue versus the new English version of their names. So like Satan, they pronounce it Seaton through most of the book, and then at the end they're like, and then I would pronounce his name in the old way, which is Satan, because if you haven't gotten it yet, he's a bad guy. But I do kind of like that exploration of names and the power of names, because, you know, I'm all about names, so that's cool. One more big gripe though, and this really annoyed me because I'm very familiar with the play, and the author of this book likes to use quotes to sort of set up her chapters, or even sort of in between chapters, just kind of as breaks to set up when the characters were going to switch or when something like that was going to happen. But the quotes she chose were cherry-picked from random parts of the play without their context, and they were partial quotes. Like, she wouldn't even use a whole line, she just used like a part of a line that had a little bit of something that she wanted. And I hated it. I hated it so much because I knew where that line came from and what the context was, and that line had nothing to do with what she was using it for. She just like liked it and cherry-picked it out of the play from somewhere. She's like, oh, this mentions witches, pluck, put it here, and my brain, which knows the context, is throwing a shit fit because I'm like, no, that's not what that means at all. That doesn't belong there. That's not where that goes. I was looking online a little bit about this book, and people were saying a great book for people who have read the play, who like the play. I think this is a book for people who have not read the play and who don't like the play. Because if you've read it to any extent and you like it, you're probably going to be kind of frustrated by this book. Because it takes that play and doesn't do anything new with it, doesn't do anything imaginative with it, doesn't explore any themes, and kind of shits on it a little bit, in my opinion. Now, maybe you really like this book, and if you do, please leave a comment and we'll talk about it. Or if you hate it too, leave a comment as well. Remember to be polite, respectful of other people's opinions. This is just my opinion. If you really thought that book was great, then let me know why, what I might have missed, why you thought it was great, why other people should maybe check it out, give it a second chance. Yeah, do that. That sounds good. This has been a fun review. I'll see you guys next time. By the way, if you have any suggestions of what I should review next, let me know.